Oh man, am I excited today? Excitement is in the air. Excitement. I am Brian Lee Durfee, author of The Forgetting Moon, The Blackest Heart, and The Lonesome Crown, all published by Simon & Schuster Saga Press. And let me tell you why I'm excited. One of my favorite authors came out with a new book in one of my favorite series that he writes. Came out with it 2 days ago. Well, wait, it's Friday now. It came out Tuesday. I'm not good in math, but it was something like 2 to 5 days ago that this book came out. The Evening and the Morning by Ken Follett. Book number 4 in his Kingsbridge series, which started with Pillars of the Earth, if you remember that. Went on to All the World Without End, to Column of Fire. Now this was set in the 11th century, Pillars of the Earth. This was set in probably the 13th or 14th century. This was like in the 16th, 17th century. And now with The Evening and the Morning, we go back and we get a prequel to Pillars of the Earth, and this is set in the 900s. Viking, right in the middle of the Viking era, when the Vikings were floating up the rivers in their Viking ships, floating up the English rivers, and just killing and slaughtering, raping and pillaging everybody along the coastline of eastern Britain and Scotland and all of that. And even into France, these guys were going. I mean, if you've watched the TV show Vikings, you know what I'm talking about. If you've read Bernard Cornwell's Saxon Tales, you know what I'm talking about. The Vikings were brutal back in the day. And in the 900s, and much like if you've watched my review, I've done a review of Pillars of the Earth. I've done a review of all 3 of these. I will link to those reviews at the end of this video if you want to watch them. But as you know, in Pillars of the Earth, I talked about how Ken Follett really describes what it's like to live in 11th century England and how awful of a place it was. Well, there was an even more awful of a place, and that was 200 years prior in the 900s, during the Viking era of southern England, during this book, The Evening and the Morning, when the Vikings, I'm telling you, man, the Middle Ages, the Dark Ages. I mean, we're talking about the Dark Ages here. I would not have survived. I mean, I like sleeping in my fluffy bed, in my mattress, in my heated home, my air-conditioned home, with all of my luxuries around my couches, my TV. I like going to the buffet and stuffing my face full of food. I like going to restaurants. Let me tell you something. In the 9th century, southern England, they didn't have any of that. And none of it. Not one bit of it. And I would have sucked. That would have sucked for me. I would have hated it. I would have hated to live then. I would have hated to have lived in a hut that had rock walls and a thatched roof and a fireplace without even a chimney. I mean, they were making mistakes. They were making colossal mistakes. And this is what we're talking about. I'm reviewing the book already, guys. These people in this day and age, they were just fumbling around, making homes that were unsafe, that were fire traps, that were fire hazards, that were choking them out. I mean, let's build a home and let's put a fire in here, and let's just let it fill up with smoke and kill us all, because we don't know any better. Because we're in the Dark Ages, and we just don't know. And let's just sit here, and the Vikings will just come and steal all our pigs and cattle and sheep and just kill us all and enslave us. And if they don't enslave us, maybe we should ask them to, because they've just destroyed everything we own. Now we can't survive. So maybe we'll just kind of beg them, can we be your slaves? Because at least then we'll get fed and be able to survive. I mean, this is as nuts. This is how nuts this time period was, where people would actually rather be enslaved than try to make a go of it on their own, just because making a go of it on your own was so colossally impractical and miserable, and the odds against you were so insurmountable. And this is Southern England we're talking about. Some of the nicest, most pleasant, delightful landscape you will find in the world. And in those days and age, it was deadly to live in. And I can only imagine what people up in Alaska were going through at the time, or down in the middle of the deserts of Africa or the jungles of Brazil. At the same time on this planet, that's why it's the Dark Ages, people. I mean, the reason they call it the Dark Ages is because it sucked on a level that can't be charted. And Ken Follett does a smashingly good job of letting you know just how desperate the times were. And that's why I love reading his books, because the research is impeccable. Every little thing that they do and say and use, all the farm equipment, all the weaponry, all the stuff they build their homes with and their churches with and their bridges and barges and ferries and all the animals. He knows what every single one of them do and the function of them in a medieval society. And man, writing advice time. If you are a writer and you want to do historical fiction, just read through these Ken Follett novels. And when you see something that you don't know what it is that he's talking about, Google it, research it. And my God, the guy's done all the research for you. You don't even have to conjure stuff up out of your head. Just read these books and be like, oh, I don't know what that is. What is, let's say for a horse, what is a gelding? I didn't know what a gelding was until I read Pillars of the Earth and I realized what a gelding is. It's a, these are the kinds of things you lose. And then you learn what different parts of a ferry boat are, or how a ferry can rope itself across a rushing river and ferry people back and forth with their horses and cattle and carts, and how important those ferries were on the River Thames, or whatever they called it back then. I gotta tell you, man, you've just got to read these Ken Follett books if you want to be even a fantasy author, if you want to know what it was like in medieval life. That just schools you. He schools you. Throughout these books, he schools you. It is a masterclass in historical research. And he's done all the research for you. You just have to read through it and figure out stuff that you don't know, and he'll teach you it. But if you want to know more, you can just Google it and learn about it more. And it's gonna set you off on a path that you don't know about. I mean, that you have not thought you knew about, or something like that. I don't know. The cat just Miss Kitty. I swear to God, she's gonna knock over the sets. Let's talk about the morning and the evening and the morning. Let's talk about this. I mean, we've got great characters, like always, and great villains, and it's set right before Pillars of the Earth. Let's talk about some of the characters real briefly. I do not give spoilers. I will just tell you it is full of all the great Ken Follett type characters that and the evil people, the good people, the protagonists, all the in-betweens. I mean, we've got Vikings that that open up with the Viking attack. Everybody, all hell break. Everybody is destroyed, slaughtered. Only the few survivors. They go off to a place called Drang's Ferry, which eventually becomes Kingsbridge. But for this book, it's called Drang's Ferry. And Drang is the guy that runs the ferry, and he's a bad dude. He's not a good guy. He's just like your typical Ken Follett, village bully, village idiot, village like evil guy who just makes everybody's life miserable because he's the ferry owner. He runs the town. He's the dude. There's some knights and stuff and some other people that are a little bit above him, but they don't care. I mean, they let him do what he does because he does it well, and he runs the town great. And then these guys like Will Wolf and his brothers, they're kind of the lords of the land, and they see that this one place was destroyed by Vikings, and they take this family. Half the family was killed, but there's a few people that survive. They take this family and say, we need you to go up to Drang's Ferry and run a farm for us in Drang's Ferry. And because your stuff has just been destroyed here. The Vikings took it and killed everybody. You're the only survivors. You're not going to survive here on your own. We'll give you this opportunity to go up to Drang's Ferry and run this farm, but you got to kind of be under the nose of Drang. And they go there, and it's Kingsbridge, right? It's actually turns into Kingsbridge later, but then there's you know, a church and a chapel and a monk and you know, Aldrin the monk. He's like one of our protagonists. Edgar is in the family that goes to start the farm. He's one of our protagonists. Great character. And then we've got another one of our protagonists. Actually starts out in Cherbourg, France. She's a princess in Cherbourg, France, and she falls in love with one of the visiting nobles that we made, that, you know, Will Wolfe and his brothers, who are the lords in southern England, who send Edgar and his family to Drangsferry. They also go venture down into France to Cherbourg, and they meet this nobleman who's got this princess named Ragna. And Ragna falls in love with Will Wolfe. They have a little bit of a tryst and affair, and they drag her back up to Drangsferry. And so now we've got all of our characters in Drangsferry, including this French princess and her entourage. And where there's like Kat, one of her maids in waiting is named Kat, and she's plucky and cool. And I mean, I like it. Great characters, just great characters. And Drang of Drangsferry, the bad guy, he runs sort of this whorehouse, and oh my gosh, you know, you don't. I mean, every time I read a Ken Follett book, there's something that tugs on my heartstrings, and one of his whores gets pregnant and has a baby, and that's all I'm gonna say. But Drang needs to be tortured, because he's a bad dude, and I was just like heartbroken. I'm like, you know, one good thing finally happens to this poor prostitute that Drang has just beaten down her whole life, and she's finally had one good thing happen to her with this baby that she loves. And you know what? I'm just gonna leave it there, because it's kind of a pivotal point in the book, and a lot of other plot lines branch off of that one event, and a lot of stuff happens. And it is one of those Ken Follett moments where you're just like, this is why Ken Follett is the master. This is why he is the great storyteller he is. This is why his books sell hundreds of millions of copies. This is why he's one of the biggest selling novelists of all time. It's scenes like that where you're going from being super happy for somebody, and then just so sad you could cry, and so angry you want to murder a dude. I mean, that's it. That's what's great about these books. If you love Bernard Cornwell's Saxon Tales, this is a must. If you love the Vikings TV show, this is a must. If you love anything that Ken Follett's ever written, it's a must. If you're a fan of epic fantasy, this is a must. You can read any one of these books in the series separate from the other, because none of the characters, I mean, like I said, they're all set 200 years apart. You know, they're distant family relations, but really, that's about it. You can read them in whatever order you want. Each one of them is just mind-blowingly awesome. Awesome! That's why I was so excited to start the video. I mean, my gosh, if you haven't read these yet, I don't know what's wrong with you. I'm starting to get angry at people that don't read now, because they're missing out on the greatest part of life, is reading about the Middle Ages and realizing how lucky you got it. There's a lot of people out here that are lazy, whining victims, and they're living like kings compared to our distant relations who really had to deal with crap. You know, they had to deal with all day long working just for one meal, and worrying about if the next Viking clan is going to come charging over the hill and kill everybody. And yet we got people today that are just pitching fits over bullshit. I got to start reading, because it opens up your mind. It makes you a better person. It makes you a more compassionate person. Although I'm not showing a whole lot of compassion now for idiots. Anyway, The Evening and the Morning. Yeah, I was so excited for this to come out because it's just always a thrill when came out. What did I say? 2 to 4 days. It's Friday now. Came out on a Tuesday, so Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. 4 days ago. Came out 4 days ago, and I just finished reading it because I do that when my favorite authors come out with books. I buy them the day they come out, and I read them. The Evening and the Morning. Great, great book. I mean, 10 out of 10s, I think I gave all of these, if not 9.5s. This one also a 10 out of 10. Ken Follett, you can't go wrong with this stuff, man.